Well, let's get some live reaction here. Why not? We figured, crunch time gets a little old if we go to Thursday with it. So we said we're gonna merge this show together. We're gonna do our regional rankings. We're gonna do our review live, well, quasi live at least too, of the Week 10 games and everything. And I got to tell you, James, the little bit of time I've had to look at the regional rankings, because they are a little bit tardy, we have to admit. Going after 4 o'clock is one of the latest I can remember. Yeah. I'm a little unimpressed, and we're going to have to go through this and explain to folks what this all means and why we think that some folks may be a little bit off their kilter in terms of the racks. First things first, before we go to our intro here, we're supposed to be funny or something. Say something funny. Come on.
Something funny.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
Kind of funny. I just realized that, I didn't, really taking care of it today. So fortunately, splish splash, there it is. It's a good thing it's cut short, not too hard to style, But hey, hey, what's not funny though is Coach Toop is retiring. We'll have man. I mean, we kind of knew it was coming. And, the guy's been in the business for 40 plus years. And, what a season for him to go out, basically this close to being undefeated, maybe has a chance at the playoffs, maybe not. We'll talk about it. The Mariners did get some love from the East region, or formerly known as the East region, one, rack. So, say it ain't so. I think you have some information, though, that may be a little disappointing for the Mariners fans, but who knows what can happen. Last Saturday, we saw half the field get filled, and I think even more so because I think teams like Wisconsin lacrosse punched their ticket. I think teams like Wheaton are still a lock, Hardin-Simmons still a lock. It's really going to come down to the other half of the not even half, some of the remaining Pool A's, and then those final 2 Pool C bids. It's going to be – someone's going to get left out, unfortunately. It happens every year, and we'll have to wait and see who it is.
Okay. That wasn't very funny, but it was very informative. I'll say that much. We got a lot of information for you on this episode. You're going to want to stay tuned. This is Season 14 of In the Huddle. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. We're going to go to a pre-recorded version of a compressed crunch time. We still have plenty of video highlights, but we know we can't go hours and hours in this show. We've got to get you the information you want here. We know you're being driven by the playoff issues and bowl issues and everything else going on. And so we're going to cover all that. Yep, playoffs, bowls, all that stuff. We're going to have the ECAC bowls released on this show Monday around 12:30. We'll get the specific time as we get closer to it. We've been working with the ECAC. We appreciate their affiliation with us on this show. If you remember, we've had great reactions along the way. Maybe we'll get a team that's on the bubble for an ECAC game to join us. There's going to be a lot of fun on that day, and that's after Selection Sunday. On Selection Sunday, we are working to get, and we believe that the NCAA is going to help us get Dewey Nats, the national chair of the selection committee, to join us on the show for a special show that we will release right after Selection Sunday's show at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time, a little bit earlier than normal, on Sunday evening. So probably around 6 o'clock, look for that after the selection show on the NCAA side, produced by Turner and NCAA. A lot of stuff going on here. 30,000 foot view, maybe a little quicker than normal here for Week 10, though. Let's take Week 10 and move it forward into where we are right now.
Well, as we saw, Week 10 was sort of the separation Saturday, and like I said at the top of the show, half the field has been filled for the national playoffs, and we have a few things jockeying around with some other postseason bowl bids, and there's going to be some rivalry, championship cup games going on this upcoming weekend. But pretty much we're starting to see, how all these conference races are wrapping up. There's still a couple that are up in the air, but there are teams that control their own destiny. We might see a crazy possible three-way tie still. We don't know, but for the most part, all the mystery that we kind of had going into Week 10 was pretty much figured out. And so we think we know who's going to make it in the rest of the way. We'll talk about that. These regional rankings, though, threw a couple of curveballs. For instance, with those last couple of Pool C bids, a certain team that I thought was in pretty good shape is now ranked below some team that I know they have a better strength of schedule than, better other, kind of qualities. So I don't know what's going on with the RAC, if they're messing around with us or what. We'll have to wait and see.
Regions 2 and 3, I will specifically say, are a mystery to me as to the orderings, but we'll get to it.
Yeah.
First things first, let's go to a 12-minute version of Crunchtime for the games of Week 10 in the fall 2021 Division III college football season. We'll start in the ECFC in Region 1, where Gallaudet tried to beat Anna Maria and put up a good effort, but Anna Maria wins 37-21. Alex Cohen went 21 for 31 for 393 yards passing, 3 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Jacob Hartman for Gallaudet, though, had a 66-yard pick six and 10 tackles in the game. Gallaudet needed Alfred State to win, and Alfred State did. Let's look at some clips here in the fourth quarter. 13:44 left in that fourth quarter. Aaron Jenkins gets a 2-yard touchdown run for Alfred State. That made it 25-10 Alfred State. Then 15 seconds later, Anthony Martinez gets a 65-yard touchdown pass from Evan Smith to make it 25-17 Alfred State as Castleton tried to catch up. But 8 minutes later, Jake Palmer gets a 5-yard touchdown run to make it 35-17 Alfred State, and that was near the final. 35-24 was the actual final. Aaron Jenkins, 429 total yards, 2 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 interceptions for Alfred State. And Evan Smith, the Castleton quarterback, 20 for 36, 301 in terms of passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. Framingham State wins the MASCAC with a 47-13 win. In the third quarter, 1 minute into it, Devon Ford gets a 54-yard touchdown pass from Nicholas Gaffredo, and that made it 21-7 for Framingham State. Then 5 minutes later, this happens.
And that pass is a nice 1-2 on a 12-yard touchdown pass to Isaiah Hanks.
Again, final 47-13. It was Gaffredo with a 281-yard passing day, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and Nicholas Anujogu, who we had on our show, I believe, a long time ago, 4 sacks on the day. Springfield and MIT met up in Cambridge at 7 p.m. on Saturday as soccer forced that game to be later. And David Wells in the third quarter sort of put this game at least into Springfield's column temporarily and then permanently, ultimately, with his 19-yard touchdown run, 14-7 Springfield at that point. Final score 17-7 Springfield as the Pride outrushed MIT 383-17. Wells with 161 total yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and Ben Dwyer for MIT with 3 catches and 85 yards on the day. Husson took on Salve Regina on their senior day, and it was really a big lead early for Husson, but Salve Regina tried to cut into it. 7 minutes left, third quarter. Max DeVito with his 54-yard touchdown reception from Jack McGuire made it 17-7 Husson, but Husson's Christian Walker ends a 13-play drive with his 8-yard touchdown reception from Nick Visser to make it 24-10 Husson, and that was the final. Visser, 244 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Joey Moriello got pretty much boxed in all day, 15 rushes, 45 yards. And Garen Passard had 106 yards on the ground for Husson. Williams, with no video here, beat Wesleyan 25-0 to keep them at 8-0 undefeated. Joel Nicholas, 26 rushes, 173 yards, and a rushing touchdown for Williams as they outgained Wesleyan 444-212. Nick Helbig from Wesleyan with 8 tackles, including 2.5 sacks. We'll look at other Region 1 scores after crunch time. Let's go to Ithaca, where Union visited, and really no video here to go on, but you can see the score, 26-7, as Ike Erebor was a workhorse for Union with 27 rushes, 154 yards, but it was Nick Bahamonde with 4 of 4 in terms of field goals on the day, 14 points total. The Ithaca defense, 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and an interception. RPI beat St. Lawrence in overtime, double overtime actually, 22-20. Daniel Lothar, 248 total yards, 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown for St. Lawrence. And then George Marinopoulos, 14 for 30, 188 yards, and 1 passing touchdown, coming back from his injury a week prior. Video of this game very much on our Twitter account, so go look for that. Carnegie Mellon wins 27-11 and takes control of the pack, at least for now. Here's a big play that occurred in the second quarter, 4 minutes left. Thomas Corey gets his punt block and return for touchdown. Return basically it lands in his hands and he's in the end zone. 20-3 was the score there. 27-11 final. Chris Hughes gets 6 catches for 125 yards and 2 touchdowns for Carnegie Mellon. And Trey Vasilidis gets 28 rushes, 118 yards, and a rushing touchdown. Muhlenberg beat Susquehanna to take control of the Centennial Conference 52-27. Michael Netkowski, 25 for 29, 380 yards, and 6 passing touchdowns. Spencer Kieran, the linebacker we've profiled before, with 10 tackles and a tackle for loss. Michael Roosh for Susquehanna went 14 for 27, 189 yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. Salisbury struggled with TCNJ, but not at first. TCNJ was down 23-2 at one point in the first half. Stephen Began gets a 6-yard touchdown run, though, with 12:31 left for TCNJ to make it 30-23 Salisbury. Later on, though, in the fourth,
Matthews going to keep it and try to pitch it out. Ball's on the ground, but Gleason picks it up. He's got room in front. He's trying to shake around the block, and he gets loose. He's in.
Into the end zone. Touchdown!
Gleason gets the score, and Salisbury
4:04 left to play.
flies ahead.
37-23 final. Billy Gant, 210 total yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdowns, and an interception. Stephen Began for TCNJ with that 14 for 31 day, 221 yards, 1 passing, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception. Montclair William Patterson was a thriller. Let's fast forward all the way to 51 seconds left fourth quarter. Zahir Wilder gets a 29-yard touchdown pass from Jaquil Birch to take the lead. The final would be 23-22 in favor of Montclair State. Wilder with that big touchdown catch. Marcel Mason, 26 rushes, 99 yards for William Patterson. Again, we'll look at other Region 2 scores after crunch time. In Region 3, Trinity faced off against Birmingham Southern. It was a back-and-forth fight. In the fourth quarter, 9.5 minutes left, Trey Patterson gets this 11-yard touchdown run for Birmingham Southern to tie the game at 21 apiece. Then 5:19 left. Ryan Merrifield gets an 8-yard touchdown pass from Tucker Horn. It's 28-21 Trinity. 23 seconds left. Trey Patterson gets his 1-yard touchdown run. 28-27 in favor of Trinity still, but they go for 2 does Birmingham Southern, and they just miss it. The pass is in and out of the hands of the receiver to make it 28-27 final in favor of Trinity, who wins the SAA. Patterson with 231 total yards for Birmingham Southern, passing and 2 rushing touchdowns, but Tucker Horn had 2 in 1 of his own, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. No video here. UMHB beats Howard Payne, who looked upstart at first, 59-14. They scored 14 points in 3 minutes 29 seconds, did Howard Payne, but Ryan Redding, who was in as a backup for UMHB, 405 total yards, 2 passing, 2 rushing touchdowns. The game was marred by a sideline incident on the HPU sideline. We've seen video of it, and a little bit of a bad look for HPU. Hopefully they get that situation resolved, as it was not what you want to see in the ASC or any NCAA game. Washington and Lee faced off against Ferrum, and let's go to the fourth quarter, minute 42 left. Josh Brees gets this 1-yard touchdown run to give Washington and Lee a 28-24 lead at that point. Later on, 1st and 20 from the Ferrum 45, this happens.
Owen Roberts back on the field covering Penn one-on-one. Jones throws it up for Penn.
It's a battle for the football, and it falls to the turf, incomplete, and Washington and Lee is victorious, and the 2021 Old Dominion Athletic Conference champions.
Washington and Lee again in a one-possession game. This time wins the ODAC 28-24. Josh Brees, that touchdown run you saw with 1:42 remaining, it was the game winner. Titus Jones from Ferrum, 23 for 32, 273 yards, 2 passing, 1 rushing touchdown. We'll look at more of these scores from Region 3 after crunch time. Albion against Hope. What a back-and-forth game this was. 6 seconds into the second quarter, Justin Thomas gets his 18-yard touchdown pass from Jack Bush to make it 21-3 Albion. But wait a minute. Third quarter, 11:20 left. Elijah Smith, his 5-yard touchdown run for Hope makes it 31-24. Hope with the lead suddenly. 3 minutes, 20 seconds later, Brendan Teal gets a 33-yard touchdown pass from Jack Bush to tie the game at 31 apiece. The teams would trade touchdowns into the fourth quarter. And then with 3:27 left, Jackson Cooney gets his 36-yard field goal. It was the game winner, 41-38 Albion. The teams combined for 951 total yards. Jack Bush for Albion, 21 for 30, 365 yards, and 4 passing touchdowns. He threw 3 of them to Justin Thomas. Baldwin Wallace takes on Ohio Northern and stays alive in the Pool C race with the 17-14 win. Brody Hahn tried hard for Ohio Northern, 14 for 28, 159 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. Keegan Armitage gets 155 total yards as quarterback with 1 passing touchdown for Baldwin Wallace. Heidelberg against John Carroll. Let's look at overtime as they were tied at 21 apiece heading into overtime. 4th and goal from the 1, a big stop by the defense of Heidelberg. 1 play later, this happens.
Sims back to pass, slings it into the end zone. Reed, touchdown! Heidelberg! Brandon Reed with the touchdown! The game winner from Drew Sims. 25-yard touchdown pass, and that's the ball game, folks. What a play to win the game!
A thrilling victory in overtime for Heidelberg, 27-21. Montavious Yearby, 30 rushes, 152 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. On the JCU side, Jake Floria with 319 total yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Drew Sims with 2 passing touchdowns, including the game winner. UW Whitewater holds on against UW La Crosse 13-7. You'll see the last play here, and it looked like there was good position by the receiver, but it was knocked away to hold on to the victory for Whitewater. Jacob Parks for UWL. That quarterback had a great day overall, 275 total yards and a passing touchdown. Alex Pete for Whitewater, though, he had 27 rushes, 151 yards on the day, and place kicker Matt Maldonado, 2 for 2 on field goals for Whitewater, and they needed both of those. Pacific beat Whitworth in a surprise in the NWC, 14-7. Josh Harris, 32 rushes, 101 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Jaden Pruitt for Whitworth didn't finish the game. Again, we'll look at other regions 4 through 6 games, but that's crunch time for Week 10 of the 2021 Fall Division III college football season. Maybe I should get my volume back up before we do the transition there. But my voice is tired from doing all that voiceover work there. JB, what we're going to do is go back through those slides quickly to do overviews of each one. We'll look at the regional rankings from that region alongside it. So I want your view on certain games that we did or did not talk about along the way. We'll start with Region 1 here. And the ECFC is basically in a situation where it's Anna Maria's to lose this coming week. And that's against Maritime, if I remember correctly. And
right.
They'll be hosting that battle. Framingham State and the MASCAC has won it. Springfield is in a battle still because Catholic could still technically sneak up on strength of schedule. If Catholic wins and Merchant Marine wins this weekend, and Springfield is in a 3-way tie with them, technically Catholic is still alive. It will take a lot of finagling in out-of-conference games. More on that in a little bit. Husson, they are... they basically gave Endicott kind of the king of the hill scenario in the CCC, excuse me. Williams, is anybody even close to them right now in the NESCAC? I don't think so, but is Amherst still a one-loss team?
Well, they beat Trinity head-to-head, and so if they both finish 8-1, I guess in theory they would be co-champions, but they would have a head-to-head win over them. But, I mean, this is a great opportunity for Coach Ray and the Eves to finish this off, and then elsewhere in Region 1, Del Val locks up the MAC for the umpteenth year in a row. They blank Wilkes in an impressive defensive showing. Worcester State had that exciting comeback win over Westfield in the MASCAC. Western New England, once again, it's interesting, UNE, the Nor'easters of University of New England, really a tough out. That program's on its way up, but interesting matchup now with Husson playing WNE in Week 11. I believe if WNE wins that game, it effectively is going to allow Salve to punch their ticket as sort of the second-place team in the CCC, assuming that Endicott beats Nichols and Nichols is a 2-7 team. That's a game that I think the Gulls should win, and based on the tiebreakers that we know of in the CCC, Endicott would be your Pool A qualifier, but an opportunity for Salve just sort of sitting there doing nothing to get a potential postseason bowl game. We know that there will be 2 New England Bowls happening in Week 12. Typically, it's a round robin of the second place teams, and how they match it up, they'll have to figure it out on Sunday night after the official brackets come out. But I could see Salve in a game potentially against UMass Dartmouth, who looks like the number 2 team in the MASCAC. And, hey, look who's at number 8 on the Region 1 rankings.
Yeah, UMass Dartmouth does make it into there at 7-2. The question is, where is Springfield? The Springfield seems to be a strong 3-loss team that may have been able to displace one of these 2-loss teams, or at least one of them, and they did not. And so a little surprising there that UMass Dartmouth was the selection over Springfield. That affects Union, of all teams, and we'll explain more about that in a few minutes. The left-hand ranking, or left-hand standings are Division III game standings. The right-hand ones are always all overall record, including NAIA Division II games, etc. In this case, they all match because Region 1 does not go out of division for games normally. Merchant Marine, don't be fooled by the fact that you're listed as number 2 there. The distance between number 1 and number 2 in this region is meteoric, basically, and their strength of schedule will drop against Coast Guard this weekend. Your chance for a Pool C bid, Merchant Marine, is about 0 unless we see extreme carnage across the country, but even then we may not still see you there because I don't think there's enough carnage that can occur because of head-to-heads going on along the way. So unlikely Region 1 gets anybody in via Pool C. Let's go to Region 2 again. Union, Ithaca, RPI, St. Lawrence. Those games were something else. The one that was closer wasn't the one necessarily expected to be such, but Ithaca beating Union keeps Ithaca alive in the Liberty League. RPI eking it out against St. Lawrence kept them alive. If Union wins this weekend in the Dutchman's Shoes game, then Ithaca wins the Liberty League and Union will be a Pool C candidate. If RPI wins, Union will not be a Pool C candidate. Their playoff dreams are completely over at that point, and Ithaca will be a Pool C candidate. We'll talk a little bit more about exactly what this looks like, and this is the biggest conundrum of the day, to be honest with you, that we'll be showing you in a couple minutes. Carnegie Mellon has impressed everybody by beating now both Westminster and Washington and Jefferson. Where in the hell are they in the Region 2 rankings? I would like to know that personally, because they have taken down two teams that are top teams in the pack. Where are they? But that was a great game by them. They control their destiny against Case Western Reserve. If they lose that game and Westminster wins against Geneva, then it's going to be Westminster going to the playoffs. Case Western Reserve is not a pushover, especially in a game against Carnegie Mellon. We see it every year. Muhlenberg is still at the top of the pack, basically. Johns Hopkins is controlless here. If Muhlenberg wins in Week 11, they go to the playoffs. Susquehanna, with those two losses, it's pretty much all over. Salisbury, a closer than you would like to see game heading into the end of this season, but they are the champs in the NJAC, and they can kind of take their foot off the pedal if they want, but bracketing matters. Montclair State just kind of feel-good story there that we saw. Other scores in Region 2 going up, go ahead and talk about what you'd like.
Well, I mean, the only thing that really jumped out, there was a close game there with Christopher Newport beating Rowan. The captains finished the year 5-5. Their quarterback, Dzersky is his name, Matt Dzersky, 402 total yards, 5 touchdowns. We've heard some rumors that there might be some changes upcoming there, but with a sophomore quarterback like him, captains are in good hands. Solid season for them. Case Western, as we mentioned before, no pushover. They take down Grove City, which pretty much ended any hope for Grove City other than a potential ECAC road game possibly. And that game against Carnegie Mellon on Saturday looms large.
So here we go. We want to spend the most time on this one because it makes the least sense. And we'll explain what we mean by that. SUNY Cortland, we completely understand as the number one here. They are the only undefeated team in this region and deserve to be number one. They face Ithaca and Corsica on Saturday at noontime. Number 2, Muhlenberg. They have a 495, I believe it is, or 498 strength of schedule. I looked earlier. And they are 1-0 against regionally ranked opponents, namely Johns Hopkins. Their loss is against a team that is not even close to being ranked in Ursinus. How they qualify as the number 2 team is a mystery to me, folks. It does not follow.
My only theory is the fact that they went to the Final Four in 2019, and the RAC is just giving them credit for that. And there's also a lot of love for the Centennial Conference, which has been justified in years past. But I would go to bat this year and say that the Liberty League was a better league than the Centennial. I know that though people will call me a homer because I went to Hobart and all that kind of stuff, but when you look at our top 4 compared to their top 4, I mean, it sort of just tells the story. Muhlenberg is not the second best team in this region. Now they've been playing amazingly, and we'll talk about their quarterback a little later on. But I mean, man, that's a lot of extra love from the committee, and I have a feeling it's basically kind of a nod to that 2019 run, which, hey, was great. But this is 2 years later, and these conferences and these results are very different. And a sub-500 strength of schedule, when everything we've heard about the importance of strength of schedule in these ranking methodologies just seems to be way off. I don't know.
Yeah, and for those that don't understand, we've talked about the whole tiebreaker of performance in playoffs in the previous year, or in this case 2019. That only occurs in terms of the undefeated teams if you can't break a tie. These are not undefeated teams in this situation. If somebody's applying that tiebreaker here, if you're applying that tiebreaker here, you're not applying the tiebreaker correctly. It doesn't belong here. Muhlenberg, there is no theory I can figure out, aside from what you're saying is kind of more of a conspiracy theory, because that's not justified what you said. There is no theory that applies here correctly for Muhlenberg. Yes, the Hopkins win was very good, but their loss was miserable when you look at it in the grand scheme of things. The teams below them, the losses, here, let's go back to this page. The losses, Salisbury loses to Whitewater, ranked. RPI loses to Hobart, ranked. Ithaca loses to RPI, ranked. Johns Hopkins loses to Muhlenberg, ranked. Union loses to Ithaca, ranked. Hobart loses to to Union and to Ithaca, ranked. Yep. So how does Muhlenberg, as the only team in this grouping with an unranked loss, become number 2? It doesn't make sense.
It does not at all. I mean, honestly, it's kind of a slap in the face to Salisbury, who they played one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the country, and sure they lost, but I mean, and maybe this is a slap on the wrist for them not blowing out TC&J. I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, Frank. Any of these teams, I mean, RPI, Ithaca, Salisbury, they all could or should be in the number 2 position, but at the end of the day, Muhlenberg is probably going to win the Pool A in the Centennial. That's not going to matter for, as far as Pool C considerations. It might have to do with seeding. Maybe they want a strong Pennsylvania seed in the brackets there, but Salisbury is kind of a pain in the ass to get to. But they could match up with Washington and Lee. They could match up with somebody from the SAA. Well, Trinity's in Texas, so not really. But yeah, it's kind of a head scratcher, and I think it's great. And it might ultimately be a necessity for Union that Hobart cracked the top 8. I mean, Carnegie Mellon's in a position to win a conference title, and in spite of they did lose a couple of games, but still, is Hobart's resume better than Carnegie Mellon's? I don't know.
If Union were to beat RPI, let's look at 5, 6, 7 here, because that's what matters in terms of Pool C. RPI is either Pool A or bust, okay? And so is Muhlenberg. Muhlenberg and RPI realistically are Pool A or bust. If they lose this weekend, they're going to drop below teams for Pool C purposes. It's done. So the teams that matter in terms of the ordering here for Region 2 are Ithaca, Johns Hopkins, Union. So, okay, you can absolutely justify Ithaca above Union. Ithaca beat Union handily this weekend. Ithaca plays SUNY Cortland. Now, if Ithaca beats Cortland, they're going to skyrocket here. They have to. Their strength of schedule is going to skyrocket. Regionally ranked opponents skyrockets. Our friend Wahid Nabi and I have been poking back and forth. He thinks that Ithaca looks really good in terms of the video he's been watching, and I'll defer to Coach Nabi at this point a little bit about that, but I also know that the Breeze Sakala story is a very good one too as quarterback at Cortland, so it'll be a great game. We'll talk more about it on Friday. But Union below Hopkins. Okay, currently their strength of schedule is somewhat close, with Union having the lead. Hopkins will have theirs drop this weekend, and Union will have theirs probably jump this weekend with the game against RPI. If they beat RPI, then you're setting Hopkins up for, I think, failure here in terms of a false sense of security, because Union should jump Hopkins. And in fact, you could justify Union above Hopkins right now. So why aren't they? Just to at least give a clue here as to what you're going to do in terms of who will be on the table for Region 2 if Union were able to get through on Saturday and win.
I mean, even before these rankings came out in my head, I had, the last 3 Pool C teams being considered as Union, Hopkins, and Birmingham Southern. And I feel like of those 3, from what I knew about the strength of schedule, the wins and losses, and so on and so forth, Union had the strongest resume of those 3. It's a razor thin, but as far as getting what's potentially going to be the very last, Pool C bid, I thought the Dutchmen had the best case scenario, assuming they beat RPI. If they lose the Shoes game, that's off the table completely. And so we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
You brought up Trinity, Birmingham Southern, the SAA situation. Birmingham Southern, when you take a look at that zoomed-in version of that final play, the 2-point conversion, you realize just how close they were to winning the SAA.
Close.
Yeah, that was closer than we realized during our Blitzer show on Saturday, zooming in and slowing it down. It was right there. And so we'll talk about where they are in a second. Howard Payne, obviously having a bad go of it in the last stanza of their season, finishing right now at 6-3, I should say, overall. Mary Harden Baylor looking good even with the backup quarterback. And Washington Lee, I mean, just go cardiac every game. Why don't you guys? I mean, somebody's going to have some trouble sleeping at night from all your anxiety you're causing here, but they do win, and they do win the ODAC at that. Go ahead with any other games you want to talk about Region 3, and then we'll look at the rankings.
Well, part of the reason why we didn't, cover too many games in Region 3 is that this area is pretty much locked up. I mean, we knew that the SAA championship would be potentially, it was decided, and then we thought that Washington and Lee would beat Ferrum, but it was a lot closer a game than we suspected. Really, the only other news out of here, Huntington locks down the USA South with their win over Maryville, so they're in the tournament. Their position in Alabama will help them or not, depending on how they get potted up. I'm guessing that we could probably see them play Trinity or maybe Hardin Simmons in round 1. So it is what it is for them. And as you can see here, Frank, Birmingham Southern ranked number 3 above Hardin Simmons, which once again, kind of interesting is I view Hardin Simmons as one of the guaranteed locks of Pool C, and the committee's trying to throw out there to Birmingham Southern, well, wait a minute, you guys might be the first one up. And I just honestly, I don't believe that when you compare the two resumes.
Well, let's look at the resumes in their entirety here, because at the end of the day, you only have, one team beyond or besides the team itself from their conference ranked in terms of Trinity has Birmingham Southern has Trinity rather. Hardin Simmons has Mary Hardin Baylor. Washington Lee and Randolph-Macon are from the ODAC. Huntington's from the USA South. So, according to your record against ranked opponents, I believe, unless I'm missing something here, Trinity and Hardin Simmons and Birmingham Southern are both 0-1. They're out of conference games, I don't think.
Well, that reminds me though, Frank, and maybe this is
Birmingham
why
Southern's other game.
They beat Huntington in like week 2 or 3, 48-9, and so that's a win over a regionally ranked opponent. So I guess it gives them a boost, even though. Yeah, I think that's the reason there. So they followed it for Region 3 purposes, maybe not so much for Region 2.
Well, let's look at what happens to Birmingham Southern's. And remember, racks are different between regions, so that's what can happen. They're going to play 2-7 Millsaps is Birmingham Southern this week. Their strength of schedule is going to take a nosedive. It's currently at a 525. Hardin Simmons is at a 528, so it's a virtual tie in terms of strength of schedule, but they'll play Texas Lutheran this week, who's 3-6, slightly better, and will probably allow them to create a little bit of separation. But I'll tell you something, JB, in terms of resume scenarios, when you look at the idea that Birmingham Southern, with a 1-1 and 520-ish, maybe 510-ish by the end of this, could be the number 1 team on the table for Region 3. Suddenly, I don't know if Region 3 gets a Pool C team at all. Because Birmingham Southern blocks Hardin Simmons.
Maybe, or it's bad news for Region 2, and Region 2 gets 0. And basically what we have is 1-6, 1-5, 1-4, 2 3s. And then I guess there would be, that's that. I think that this is a scenario that's starting to develop here by the placement of Birmingham Southern as the 3rd team in these rankings. It's not going to be a good thing for Region 2 unless that Region 2 team is Ithaca. I think everybody else might be up the creek based on what we see here.
Well, what if Union has a 540 SOS by the end of this and a 2-1 regionally ranked opponent record? That resume far exceeds anything Birmingham Southern could have.
Muhlenberg has a crummy SOS, and they're the second ranked. I mean, all of a sudden they've there's been a track record of strength of schedule being a really big strong component here, and then they do the exact opposite with these rankings with some of these teams. It's kind of perplexing.
So. There's always a theory out there about when racks take too long with their rankings, what it means, or what it means when the NCAA is late in putting them out. And these are reviewed by the NCAA committee, the full committee. And you wonder if the full committee didn't question some of the things we're questioning here. Because, again, there are no justifications for what happened in Region 2. Region 3 is an interesting problem, and you spotted it. The Huntington question is probably where we're finding this security blanket for Birmingham Southern. But when the SOSs start separating...
Let's not be too unfair. I mean, like you said, the Panthers were literally a ball drop away from winning the SAA, and so they just,
And you know who's a ball drop away from possibly winning the ASC?
Hardin Simmons.
Yeah. And so it works both ways. And if I'm Hardin Simmons, I almost knocked off number 1. Okay?
Yeah.
And number 1 by probably a landslide in people's views in Region 3. So if you're going to pin everything on the close game to number 2 and a win against number 7, I tell you, you might want to reconsider things a little bit as strength of schedule starts shifting. Look, Chris Shuford and company, you did a great job in almost winning that game and having a great season so far. Don't take this as a dig to you. But this is when you're talking about the best of the best across the country. We have to be objective here. We have to be fair about this situation. And I was there. That Harden-Simmons game, they almost had number one. They should have had number one. And in fact, if they did, we'd be talking about Mary Hardin-Baylor maybe behind Birmingham Southern at this point. Who knows what the heck's going on?
It would. It's crazy that that's the case. But, yeah, that's kind of what we're seeing here. And like I said, from just a few days ago, I was really convinced out of those sort of three teams, I thought that, Union was in the best position. But based on this, it doesn't seem that way anymore.
Yeah, let's go to Region 4 through 6. And Albion actually just popped up my screen, so that's good news because I'll get to see the standings and tell you that because they are tied with Hope and Trine, and they have beaten both Hope and Trine, Albion with a win versus Alma wins the MIAA. What a great game that was. I mean, it was an 18-point lead by Albion. Hope flies past them for the lead.
Was it 21-point lead? Wasn't it like 24-3 at one point? Remember we were watching this? We're like, oh, man, Albion's killing them. And then all of a sudden it was 24-24. We're like, whoa, wait a minute. We better pay attention to what's going on here.
Yeah, we were going to take it off our feed, actually, because, we can only put so many games into our system. And that was when we're like, this is over. And then suddenly we get a touchdown as Hope. And we're like, oh, maybe not. And good thing we didn't. Baldwin-Wallace still a strong Pool C candidate, we think, sort of, with one loss. We'll talk about it in a second.
If you're a Region 2, say Union or Hopkins fan, you better be cheering on the Blue Streaks because John Carroll has the opportunity to play spoiler. If they knock off Baldwin-Wallace in Week 11, that's going to free up a Pool C spot. And
we'll talk more about that in a second. We'll look at the full list. Heidelberg, obviously, with that great overtime win and the excitement that went with it, still a great moment from Saturday.
On that one. What a game!
Yeah, absolutely. Whitewater holding on against La Crosse. Give La Crosse a lot of credit. That defense is strong for them. Yeah. And Pacific, we don't know what happened to Whitworth's Jaden Pruitt, but I probably lent to why the score stayed at 14-7. As you lose an offensive powerhouse like Pruitt, things can't be easy. We got another page worth, so go ahead and start going through your 4 through 6 games here you want to.
Well, some obvious stuff. North Central clinches CCIW, Mount Union clinched the OAC. Linfield clinched last week, so we knew that. Wheaton is winning big and in a good position. Bethel is going to host St. John's for the MIAC title. That's another situation where if you are a Pool C bubble team, you want Bethel to lose that game, not win. Elsewhere, DePaul wins the NCAC. Rose-Hulman, I think, pretty much clinched the Heartland. They may technically have to win one more game, but they're playing a team from the bottom of the standing, so they're on their way. Aurora wins the NAC, and then we saw actually a game in Minnesota get postponed / probably canceled at this late date. And I think, fortunately, Frank, I think that only is like about 5 or 6 games out of the however many hundred, close to 1,000 now maybe games that we've played in Division III over the last 10 weeks. So that's a really great sign and really great to see after all the stuff we went through the prior year. So. Chicago wins huge over Lawrence. They're going to be taking on Lake Forest, who is one of the remaining undefeated teams in the country. But because of some wacky tiebreaker rule, they kind of need to win this game against Chicago to not put themselves at the mercy of this quarters played situation that they're in. So that's going to be a big one to watch in Region 5 for Week 11.
Easy for you to say. So how bad are things in Region 4 overall? You look at your number 7 team. John Carroll, who lost this week, is still number 7 because that's
the only 33-loss team, I think, in any of these rankings, Frank. I'm pretty sure.
And we only go 7 deep in these rankings, too, don't forget. So it's magnified by that fact here. Mount Union a clear number 1 here, and we believe they have to be number 1 for region slash geographic.
They're going to win their conference. It's like, whatever.
Well, DePaul at 8-0 in terms of D3 games, and that's what matters primarily. That's primary criteria. Secondary criteria would take into account the loss, but you probably don't need to go there. They win the NCAC. They've won what they need to there and don't have to worry about much else. Baldwin Wallace, they are the Pool C team that will be on the table if they win. If they win.
You know what else this tells me, Frank? Look at the 3 teams beneath Mount Union. You think Mount Union's going to be a number 1 seed? Well, look, they've got 3 wins out of ranked teams, and it's a possibility that they could have 4 if somehow Westminster sneaks in, winning the pack through the tiebreaker. This points to me that the committee is propping Mount up for a number 1 seed. We talked last time about whether or not St. John's had a better resume based on the 2019 run and what they've accomplished, as well as Del Val we talked about. But ultimately, end of the day, Frank, I think your statement from our last show, the committee wants a team that's close to the East Coast, and Ohio. Alliance, Ohio is that location. It has been many years in the past. This is the committee saying Mount Union is going to be one of your number 1s, in my opinion.
Region 5, North Central clearing away, again, number 1. Central, though, is a compelling story. I don't think they are even close in that respect. But if you look at their strength of schedule, they are... after North Central, number 178 overall with a 466. And so you can see the differential between a Central and a North Central, which is a mouthful when you think about it. And then you ask, well, why isn't Lake Forest there? The Foresters, you probably have a better SOS than that. Well, no, they don't. It's 450. Chicago will obviously help them, but you are looking at a situation where they're making it clear that Wheaton, even with a loss, is better than an undefeated team with a 450 strength of schedule. We would assume that to be the case. The loss being to North Central, a close game early in the season. Wheaton's strength of schedule isn't exactly anything to write home about at 495, but it's much better than 450, and that's what's happening here. Aurora, thanks for coming. You played a great schedule this year, and you've pretty much won your conference, and that's all you got to worry about. So that's that. We're not sure where the head coach is coming from. And you said that John Carroll is the only 3-loss team. Wartburg is down there at number 8 with 3 losses. So Region 5 a little thin as well, but definitely some questions here as to what the heck Co is doing here. And why Wartburg necessarily beyond their schedule?
We figured that out last time, I think. Co beat somebody in the beginning of the season that was a decent team and a ranked win. They beat Hope, and so that's a win over a regionally ranked opponent, I think. Although Hope wasn't on the Region 4 one from the last time.
They were.
And they lost. They are again. Let me see. Yeah, they're so that's why Co is on there. They lost to Wartburg though, which is interesting. But 7-2 is better than 6-3, I guess. Anyway, so Hope is
Hope
is still on there. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So I think that's why.
Let's go to Region 6. Region 6 is probably where all paths begin in certain ways here. Wisconsin Whitewater clearly the cream of the crop after that close win against La Crosse and what they've had to go through in the WIAC. We take our hats off to them this season. St. John's is not a lock here because they have to play Bethel.
Yeah.
Now, the question really that we don't have an answer to is, okay, we do know the answer to this. If St. John's loses to Bethel, they will be the first team or one of the first teams in Pool C selected. Would you not agree with that?
Well, I mean, La Crosse to me is the most obvious slam dunk. If I was on the committee, they would be my number 1 pick in Pool C. Maybe St. John's would be my number 2, but to the way that La Crosse took Whitewater to the limit, I mean if not for that outstanding defensive back play by number 11, I know he was, I think, Pat's game ball player of the weekend. I mean, that was a touchdown pass, and Whitewater could have lost that game without that great play. So La Crosse, to me, punched their ticket last Saturday. They are in the tournament. No matter, you can't tell me otherwise. They are in. They are going to be one of the 32 teams. They will be the first team picked off the board, I think. And then if St. John's with a loss, I would say that they might be a number 2. If not, maybe Wheaton could be picked second, and then St. John's. It just, once again, like these Midwestern teams are just going to keep eating into that, 1 or 2 spots remaining for any Region 2 or 3 teams.
Let's look at the facts, though. Let's say St. John's wins. What do you do with Bethel? What do you do with them? They've lost twice to the same team, which is a rarity in football. In basketball in Division III, you'll see it, soccer, where they have double round robins, and that can happen. It doesn't happen in football. So how do you look at this double loss to the same team? Then you look at their strength of schedule. It's a 541 currently, and then they're going to add St. John's again. It's going to fly up into the 560s or 570s. That's extremely high.
Yeah,
so if
they're
Bethel
already
loses,
48, so it's going to go up into the 30s probably.
If Bethel loses, they will stay below Wisconsin La Crosse, but they will not fall below Redlands, I don't believe. And so Bethel will be a compelling Pool C possibility still.
Yeah.
I think anything below Bethel right now is locked out. I don't see Bethel, unless they get thrashed this weekend against St. John's. I don't see them falling. Why would they? Everything about their resume is improved by this championship game. Note to conferences out there that don't have championship games. You watch this situation and realize this thing is actually possibly going to help a 2-loss team buck the trend entirely.
Yeah.
Because, again, La Crosse, probably one of the first taken. Bethel sits there for 3 or 4 rounds. Yep. Bethel sits there for 3 or 4 rounds, JB. You got to eventually love them. You got to eventually love the numbers behind them. They've beaten Gustavus Adolphus, if I remember correctly, so they're 1-2 against regionally ranked opponents at that point. What's not to love about Bethel?
Yeah.
So, folks, get a championship game when you have a lot of teams in your conference. They're showing why it works in the MIAC. Okay, before we go further, one thing we do want to do is talk about 2 things. Let's do in reverse order compared to normal. Who's left is undefeated here. Delaware Valley, Cortland, Mary Hardin Baylor, Central, Trinity, DePaul, Mount Union, Linfield, North Central, and Wisconsin Whitewater have all clinched their Pool A bids. The undefeated teams that have not are Lake Forest and St. John's because of that championship game we just talked about. Williams also undefeated, but in NESCAC, and they do not participate in the NCAA playoffs. So you have in playoff-worthy teams 2, 4, 6, 9, 12 left.
Baker's dozen, Frank. You get 13 with Williams in there, but that is a dozen that are playoff eligible.
And let's go to one of our favorite portions of the show, JB's MVPs, and talk about, you don't have to talk much about Michael Nikowski with those 6 touchdowns against Susquehanna.
Yeah, I made a joke about how Greg and I seem to pick the same guy, and we've done it a few times this season. And I was trying to think, since we knew we were going to do this a little delayed, I was like, I could try to find somebody else. But how do you not recognize that? I mean, he was nearly perfect with his with what he went for 25 of 29 for 380 yards. I mean, against a pretty good team too, to boot. So had to give it to Michael Nikowski. Am I saying that right? Nikowski. I'm always bad with names.
Nikowski is right. Yep, Michael Nikowski. You got it.
He is an elite quarterback that Nate Milne has really enjoyed coaching. My pronunciation's not so elite. Speaking of cool names, and actually before I butcher Nick's name, I made a little error on the Framingham State box score. I believe the quarterback's name is Josh, not Nicholas. I think he's got a brother on the team. So sorry about that, Josh. That was my bad, not Frank's. But getting back to great names, Nick Bahamande from Ithaca with a 4-for-4 field goal day, kicked a couple of extra points. So he scored 14 points in that big win over Union. He had a 61-plus average on kickoffs. One of the big days he's had. I think there were some records that he broke at Ithaca, and credit him in a tweet he sent out that this is really a team award. It's not about him, and I think that was a really just a great performance. And so he's my special teams MVP. Last but not least, you know me, I love guys who wear 36. Just kind of a bias I have, but at the end of the day, I couldn't find anybody in the entire country who had 22 tackles. And when you play a triple option team as a linebacker, you're going to get the ball smashed at you all game long. And this guy did not back down. I know the Engineers lost the game, but still, I have not. That is incredible. I mean, I think you had 11 solo, 11 assists, one of the best defensive performances of the year, just from a pure statistics standpoint. Congratulations to senior linebacker Paul Calvetti. Hey, I love my 36 guys. Awesome performance, 22 tackles, defensive MVP of Week 10.
JB, that's pretty much everything we've got. We talked about Coach Toop, Coast Guard. That we'll go a lot more in depth into that game on Friday. Coach Toop's going to be missed. What it exactly means, how the timing of this is going to work, we'll get into with him at 9:10 a.m. He'll join us live on our show on Friday morning. Thanks to Joe Guster for helping us out with those details. And also, Craig Halbert is the color commentator, and Robert Lee is play-by-play for ESPN3's broadcast of the Secretary's Cup game at Coast Guard. But ESPN's going to have some coverage throughout the week, including on Veterans Day from Coast Guard Academy with Coach Grant, etc. over there. So you're going to watch some D3-centric stuff from ESPN this week. Kudos to them for doing it.
Player, I think a former Coast Guard Bears player is also being interviewed as well. He's a higher ranking, I think, military officer now. But yeah, it's going to be a picturesque, that stadium there in New London, really great location. You were at a game there a few years back, I think, when the Coast Guard won. Maybe it was when the Mariners won, and then the Coast Guard won it back last year. But anyway, it's a great location for a D3 game.
Where am I going to be this weekend? I honestly don't know. I swear to God, I don't know. We've been toying with this. We were hoping that Union would get the game moved with RPI to later in the evening to make it a showcase game.
MIT did it.
Yeah, MIT could do it. And I know the SIDs at Union hate me for this, and the SID staff, but you know what? It's one game. The kids would love to see the players would love to see a night game on their send-off, essentially, at least for regular season purposes. After everything they've been through on both sides of this equation, they deserve whatever the hell they want, as far as I'm concerned. I wish they would make the move, but we have seen no movement so far. We did like that. A.D. McElroy from RPI did like my original tweet, so I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of things, but thanks to him. But we don't know, and we might put it to a vote at the last second. I've been thinking about going down to Rowan at TCNJ on Friday night, which is the last of the Friday night games that are on the schedule. And so maybe we play it from there. We'll see what we do with it. We'll give you more details over the next couple of days. Before we leave you, one more time, the regional rankings. Del Val topping in Region 1. This is the first time we get to see numerical rankings, so now we can say that with definitiveness like we couldn't have last week. Merchant Marine's number 2 is kind of a false flag of sorts because of the way that the rest of their resume reads. It's just not going to happen for Merchant Marine in terms of playoffs this year. Don't forget, again, we can't tell you who's going to win between Catholic and Springfield in a 3-way tie, because in that situation, if Merchant Marine and Catholic win on Saturday, the strength of schedule will determine it, and ultimately it could flip. Right now, Springfield has a somewhat reasonable lead over Catholic, but Catholic will go up slightly from playing Springfield, more than Springfield will go up from playing Catholic, and then it comes down to the teams that they played out of conference, because they play so many of them. There's 4 teams for each team to weigh into their statistics. So that's a very interesting problem that will be worked out this weekend. Region 2, it's a stunner, and without good reason. Muhlenberg at number 2 after what we can say universally, Cortland number 1, yes. But Muhlenberg at number 2, Muhlenberg, as far as I'm concerned, probably belongs just above Hopkins, and then Ithaca and Union and RPI could be above that, and I'd be very happy with this list, not because I'm a homer, but because the stats support it. The criteria support it. What happens after this weekend if RPI loses to Union, where things go, we can't really tell you right now, except we can tell you the strength of schedule for Union is going to be very good. And their regionally ranked opponent record will probably be very good as well. Stay tuned. Region 3, Birmingham Southern, by way of the Huntingdon win by them, is ahead of Hardin-Simmons. That's a shocker to many. And will it change? Probably not, because the strength of schedule differential will not be much unless something catastrophic occurs to Birmingham Southern's strength of schedule after this weekend. We do know that they're playing Millsaps. We get that fact. But Hardin-Simmons isn't going to be playing exactly a world beater either, and so what is it? I'm going to forget it or get it wrong here, so just forgive me. Texas Lutheran, excuse me. So in that respect, the SOSs aren't going to be very different. So right now, Birmingham Southern is blocking Hardin-Simmons from the table. Region 4, not very deep. And Mount Union's benefiting from that fact in terms of probably number 1 ranking or number 1 seed because of it. Region 5, North Central, no surprise. But the rest of these groupings, Central, etc., the strength of schedule in some of these upper teams is woeful. And so Wheaton sort of benefits from the fact that that's happening because otherwise they might be pushed down lower. And in Region 6, I swear I'm coming up with Region 6 here. There we go. We have the mystery of what happens with Bethel if St. John's wins and how the ordering will work here. But to send folks off, JB, if you had to pick your 5 teams in order right now, knowing where they're landing right now on these lists, what would they be?
Well, as I said before, Lacrosse from 6. Wheaton from Region 5. Region 4, if Baldwin Wallace beats John Carroll, they will get in. There's like 4 OAC teams in that rack ranking. They love the OAC. So Baldwin Wallace, who's 9-1 with a loss to Mount Union, they're in. Region 3. Originally, I was going to say that Hardin-Simmons, I've said all season Hardin-Simmons is a lock, but now they have Birmingham Southern blocking them. And so that's going to be interesting and a problem, especially with Trinity being the SAA champ and based in Texas. It kind of helps, especially, you have Huntington from the USA South and Alabama. You're starting to have a nice little pod of teams there in the Texas area. So I think Birmingham Southern might get it, and then it's going to come down to the sort of shakeout between if Cortland blows out Ithaca and Ithaca doesn't win the Liberty League, they're out. If Union beats RPI, that puts Ithaca in as a Pool A. RPI is not going to get in as a Pool C at 8-2. That final spot's going to come down between Union and Hardin-Simmons possibly, and I don't know if Union can overcome
or Hopkins
that. Or Hopkins, yeah. Hopkins is getting this sort of weird Centennial love, but like you said, they're playing McDaniel. That's going to drop their strength of schedule. Ultimately, it's going to come down to me. I think it's going to be like a 3-team race for one final spot, and the placement of Birmingham Southern really sort of threw a curveball. And then also the way that the Centennial is being so boosted in Region 2 is a really bad deal for the Liberty League.
Yeah, and the fact that they don't have many regionally ranked opponents, they're almost forgiving the conference in the Centennial Conference for having a 10-team conference with a 9-game round robin between them. While I can appreciate that, and while it does do funky things to the strength of schedule, you cannot ride that all the way to this type of scenario.
The only other The only thing I'd add is that, for anybody out there who's somehow thinking that, Cortland or Del Valle is going to be a number 1 seed, nope, not going to happen. It's clearly Mount Union is going to be the 4th number 1, and so you'll probably see a Del Valle maybe paired with them. You might see Cortland paired up with, maybe a Whitewater possibly because of
maybe a Mary Hardin Baylor. Maybe they create the island scenario that way on the other half of the bracket, and then do the flight for the semis.
Yeah, the number 1 teams in Region 1 and Region 2 are pretty solid locks for 2s, maybe 3s, depending on where teams like St. John's ends up. Even as a Pool C team, Wisconsin lacrosse is going to be pretty highly ranked by this committee. But we'll have to wait and see. Selection Sunday's coming up soon, and it'll be great to talk to Dewey Nats again, and we'll kind of break the brackets down and see what you guys think.
JB, we're just over an hour here. Let's call it quits for now. Friday morning, the Tooper, just before his final game as head coach of the Merchant Marine Academy. It's going to be a little emotional for us, and you'll want to watch it to hear what's going through his mind. Some call it the worst-kept secret. Some folks kind of knew it was coming, but just to hear it this morning when he texted me to go check Twitter, and I looked everywhere but on his own page. He announced it on his own Twitter account the way he wanted to.
He's always done his own way, man. That's Toop for
Mike
you.
Toop. That's Mike Toop through and through. Folks, thanks for joining us. We'll see you Friday morning.